to you all. I'm Howard Sachs, the director of the Rural Life Center here at Kenyon College, which is the presenter of this event. This is Visits, our fourth year, believe it or not. As our flyer suggests, Visits is a series of conversations with area residents exploring the character of rural life. And as I was saying to our guest today, Visits is sort of like, Knox County weather. If you don't like it, wait 10 minutes, it's going to change. The character of our Visits programs are as varied as the community that we are talking about. As you know, today our subject matter is emergency, but I wanted to just let you know about the other events that are coming up in the months to come. This is the first of 3 events in our series. The next one, which is Thursday, March the 21st at Common Hour, is on Knox County Cowboys. There are a number of rodeo experienced cowboys and others in this community who know tall tales, cowboy poetry, cowboy songs, and trick roping. And so we thought we'd do something perhaps a little bit lighter on the entertainment side. That's in March. I call your attention in particular to the fact that it's going to be in a different place. Trick roping needs bigger spaces than we have here, and trick ropers don't like to rope on carpet. So we're going to be in Gun Commons over on the other side of town, just across the street from the Village Market, just north of that. If you're not quite sure where that is, just ask anybody. And then in April, Thursday, April 23rd, we're going to do a program on organic farming. We have 2 students here who this past fall interned on an organic farm, and that's a subject that has come up in the news a good bit. So we're going to have some organic farmers here and talk about what that's all about. If you didn't write that all down but want to remember, back by Virgil there on that table is, I think, a very attractive flyer with all the information you need to know. There's also some material from some of the organizations that are represented by these folks today. So I urge you to pick all that stuff up before you leave. Finally, I want to thank Faculty Lectureships, which is funding this as it has from the very beginning. And without their support, we couldn't be doing this at all. Today's topic is emergencies, something that I think has probably been on all our minds ever since that date, September 11th. The events that happened then have given us all pause and made us think about things that we probably didn't think very much about before then. And certainly one of those things is emergency services. We all gained a renewed appreciation and respect for firefighters, emergency workers, police officers, and what they did in New York and in Washington, D.C. But what about rural areas like Knox County? What effect has terrorism and the tragedies of 9/11 had on emergency services and planning in our own communities? And more generally, what's distinctive about rural emergency services that we might not think about? We tend to associate, at least after 9/11, emergency services with what happens in urban areas. Those are some of the things we're going to talk about today, in addition to whatever you want to talk about. I'm joined by 3 folks who can tell us a lot about that. Larry Hazen, to my immediate right, who's Fire Chief with the Fredericktown Fire Department, one of a number of township and local area fire departments in our county. Joe Bobet, who is the Chief of the Ohio Valley Emergency Response Team, hereafter referred to as OVERT. And John Barber, who is from the Kokosing Valley Mounted Search and Rescue team. And we're going to talk among ourselves for a little while, and then, as is our habit, we're just going to open it up to the floor and have a conversation with all of you. I know there are a number of people here who are themselves involved in emergency services, so they can chime in with their own expertise at that point, and we'll just see where it goes. If it is today like it is in the past, it's always a lively discussion. Larry, let me start with you, just try and get a little idea of what your operation is like. How big is the Fredericktown Fire Squad?
On the fire department, I have, there's 25 firemen. I'm kind of unique with the Fredericktown unit over some of the other chiefs in the county. I only have to deal with the fire. The EMS is a separate entity in Fredericktown, so we have two chiefs, but, so I only have to deal with the fire side of it, so that takes a little bit of the load off of what my side. We cover 4.5 townships, practically 100 square miles of territory.
What's the furthest you have to go?
The farthest we go is up in the Pike Township, and that, there's no straight way of getting there, so that makes our farthest run. So we have a major fire or that in that side of the county. We use a lot of mutual aid coming out of Butler, Richland County.
Is your squad all volunteer?
We're all volunteer, and they get paid $5 for every hour they're on a run. So,
What do you look for in a volunteer?
it's getting harder. It's when I first started, just about anybody could volunteer. He was able to use a lot of, if you had a fire in town or something like that, he was able to use a lot of people, bystanders and that. Now, kind of your liability situation, workman's comp, they've got to have the training before you can even practically hand them anything. So it's getting harder and harder to find the people, basically to have the time to get the training on that.
Tell me a little bit about the training. How much and what kind of training do volunteers have to go to?
Well, more training than some of them think they need to be for a volunteer. They think when you're a volunteer, you don't need a whole lot of training, but the only thing you volunteered for was the time you was gonna spend from then on you're mandated on the training you have. Minimum training for a volunteer fireman is 36 hours of basic training. And then you have other training that you have to have. If you go into hazmat, or you have to have a minimum of 4 hours to make a run that you're gonna, so it keeps adding up.
Tell me what hazmat is.
Hazmat is if you make a response to a chemical that's been spilled, that's called a hazmat. State and federal government require you to have so much training to do that. All levels, and you can't participate at a level that you're not trained at.
So what kinds of emergencies do you respond to, and what's distinctive about being in an urban fire squad that would be different from something in the city or the suburbs?
Probably the most distinctive part would be the territory, the terrain. For Knox County, it'd be the terrain you're covering, and that for a volunteer, I guess it's time spent, because in the city or a paid department, you're there on all the time. You can do in-house training, where we have to set up special times and have training. For us, we train 2 nights a month. Officers meet 1 night a month over that, plus any other special trainings that we do and that on weekends. The fire department, I guess, the biggest change in the fire department is that the fires are the smallest part of your response anymore. They are for us anyhow. Out of 147 runs we made last year, only 44 of them was related to fire. The rest of it is rescue runs. We run a mutual response with Fredericktown Squad on basically all their traffic accidents or that they need. Last night, for instance, we had one where we run with them because we had to do a rescue. A farmer fell in the hay mow, so we had to help them remove him out of the hay mow.
What was involved with that?
I had some rope rescue to lower him out of the mow, and that after the squad had stabilized him and that, It's, and the public, I guess, views the fire department, if they need something done, they're the ones that gets the call, so you never know what the call's gonna get. And that can be anything from the fire or removing a cat out of a tree, but
You still get those, huh?
we still get those.
John, let me switch over to you a little bit. Larry talked about the unique terrain, and what you do probably has a lot to do with unique terrain. Tell me a little bit about your organization and how big it is, and you're on horseback.
Yeah, a little bit on the organization. We're fairly new, just started first of the year. Been thinking about it and involved in it somewhat prior to that, but actually just got it off the ground as of the first of this year. We have 17 members. Of those, there are 4 more or less ground people to coordinate things on the ground for us, and then work with whoever's on the scene, and the balance of 13 riders. A few things to highlight of being mounted versus being on the ground. One of the things is it gives you a lot of advantage on height. You set approximately double what your height is when if you're standing, so you can see better. As far as covering terrain, most or all of us joining this for, I have horses, have had all my life. Really enjoy riding. To me, relaxation to me is getting out here in the woods and going on a trail ride, even though it's mentally relaxing, I guess. It physically can be demanding, but a good trail horse can cover 99% of the area found in Ohio or Knox County. I mean, there's very little of it. I mean, uphill, downhill, woods. You can cross creeks up to 3.5 feet deep without swimming. You can swim the horses deeper than that, but that's not great in this kind of weather.
Yeah,
but
right.
they can cross, very rough terrain, rocky, steep ground. Basically, if you can, I guess, try to give you a little bit of an answer on that. If you can walk up a bank or a slope without using your hands for balance, a horse can negotiate that easily. And go steeper in that depending on personal, individual horse and the rider's ability also. You can cover about 20, a horse in good shape can cover 20 to 25 miles a day. It depends on the terrain and, of course, physical condition of the animal, but try to keep them up in good shape. You can cover, I've rode 25 miles down Hocking County to Old Man's Gate in a day, which is very demanding terrain down there. It's up, down, winding and steep ground.
So tell me how a search would actually work. If I've got a fire, I know who to call, and all the equipment's in one place, I assume.
Yep.
But you don't have a central location, and people might not know that. How do you find out, how do you get a call in the first place, and then how do you organize things, and then what do you do when you go out?
Basically, you be available to any fire or police, sheriff department, and to be legal, they need to call us out. I mean, I can't get our group together and come to your house, and I can come to your house and ride on your property, but I can't go on other people's property without either fire or sheriff department, police department. It's okay. In case, most of the time it will be, like say, either the sheriff department be involved in first taking the call, probably at a missing person or lost or whatever, and either they can call us or fire department, which is a lot of times, I mean, Larry can, I'm sure vouch for this, gets called a lot of times for manpower to put enough people out there to search. They can also call us. Contact, we've got a couple contact numbers. They're on the card there. There'll be my number and Aaron, the vice president's number, which we then have a call out list, the two of us call the balance of our people, and you can't get hold of everybody all the time, but most instances I feel comfortable in being able to put out 10 people and within an hour to an hour and a half's notice, get home, if they're not at home, which are like, we all work sometime somewhere, get home, get loaded, get their equipment. Mine, other than the horse and the saddle, is loaded in the trailer all the time, all the odds and ends stuff. I mean, I can go home and hook up, and in 5 minutes I can be loaded and out of there.
And once you go out to a site and start to search, do you have an organized pattern where?
Right, well, then we have, like I say, we have ground people who are supposed to be there before the rest of us, if they don't have a horse to get around of, and it's their responsibility to talk with fire chief, deputy, whoever's on the scene, get us the information, person, where they were last seen, what they were wearing, hopefully a picture of said person, and a map of the area if we can come up with one, and then by that time, they'll coordinate us and line us up, usually in a grid pattern, and you may be within 30, 40 feet of each other, you may be a couple hundred feet apart depending on the terrain, and try to set up and do, and do a sweep pattern that way.
Now the horses, of course, give you, as you say, give you higher visibility and they let you cover more different terrain. Can the horse work almost like a dog to help sense
Very
where
much.
people are? Tell me about that.
If you are in tune with your animal, and this varies individual to individual, and, no, we don't have any horses trained to go sniff somebody out, but they have a much better sense of smell, hearing, and sight than we do, and your animal will, if you're standing out in the woods and I ride by, I may miss you, but generally my horse will, he'll stop, maybe only for a second, but if you're in tune with that animal, he'll key you into, there's something over here, and let you know that it's something out of the ordinary, maybe a deer, maybe a turkey, maybe a person, can be another horse, but there's something out of the ordinary, and they will usually respond to that, and can shy away from certain things, odors, as far as smoke or something like that, unpleasant odor can make them. You can tell a lot from your animal if you're familiar with it and you've rode it a lot. Not being critical. If you got a new horse, you got a new horse. But my old horse, I've had him for 7 years, and I can just about tell you what's up ahead by the way he's reacting. If he's getting nervous or tense, there's something real strange, real out of the ordinary, or if he just stops and looks, like I say, it can be a deer, it can be a person, it can be anything, but yes, your animal can take it a lot.
Joe, let me turn to you for a little bit. Tell me what's included in the Ohio Valley. You're a sort of a different entity.
Yeah, we're multidisciplined and non-jurisdictional. Those big words basically mean that we can provide more than one service anywhere. Unlike a law enforcement agency or a fire department, they're jurisdictional. They stay in one geographical location. They have all of their resources there. They can go out of their area, but with a limited amount of resources, keeping most of it back for their own area. We have no jurisdiction, so our jurisdiction, in a sense, is this region, Ohio and the surrounding states, also including North Carolina as far south and New York State as far northeast. Multidiscipline means that we can provide ground search and rescue, dive recovery, disaster assistance, medical, and as well as the off-rescue side of it, community education, and safety programs.
How big is your organization?
Currently, we're approximately 35 to 45 members, and those range from college kids to housewives to plumbers, as well as firefighters, EMTs, law enforcement agency people.
Volunteers?
All volunteer.
Tell me a little bit about dive recovery. That's an aspect we don't often hear.
Actually, around here is quite a bit of dive recovery. Most of the sheriff's departments and some of the volunteer fire departments have a dive recovery team. Our team is rather new. We have 3 certified divers. We have about 4 people who are in the process of getting their open water diving cert and their rescue cert. We can provide lost person recovery underwater, as well as evidence recovery for local sheriff's departments or police department.
So you would be called by someone else?
We would be called, just like that, everyone else, we have to be called to the scene for a lost person, and to, for an example, the sheriff is usually in charge of it, because they have to determine whether it's still a lost person, and then when does it go into a criminal case. So usually 9 times out of 10 it's the sheriff who's in charge. They would call our resources in, we would provide them the ground, then if there's a water element, where a person is not is just as important as where a person is. So ponds, creeks, streams, they have to be ruled out to give a sense of assurance that that victim is not there as well as there.
So what kind of training do your volunteers have to receive?
We are affiliated with NASAR, which is the National Association for Search and Rescue. We are nationally certified and internationally recognized. There are 3 levels of training. There's SARTEC 3, which is like your basic searcher. Teaches them basic navigation, some minor first aid, orienteering. SARTEC 2 is a more advanced person. They're more trained to sustain a person for a period of 24 hours. And SARTEC 1 is a crew leader. They have to sustain not only their crew, but their victim.
All of you rely on volunteers for your organization, and we rely on volunteers for the services. Are volunteers harder to find these days than they used to be?
Yeah. People's lives are too busy.
The barriers to entry are considerably higher than they used to be. First time I did this, my initial EMS course was 30 hours, and then it was 60 hours, and then it was 90 hours. Now we're running a course that's 144 hours for basic EMT. And then as Chief Hazen mentioned, there's hazmat, biohazards, rescue and extrication, underwater search, rescue and recovery, high-angle rescue, confined spaces and mine rescue. We organized in eastern half of this county, Bladensburg, College Township, and Danville, a BCD technical rescue team to train people specifically in high-angle and cliff rescue. We were out in the tower Sunday morning for 2.5 hours in the drizzle of hell. We have people trained in underwater search and recovery and confined spaces and mine rescue. And it requires time, and it becomes harder and harder. 20 years ago, I wrote an editorial for the EMT Journal in which I argued that in the end it's going to come down to 1 superbly trained person per county. As the barriers to entry get higher and higher.
How do we deal with that? How do you deal with the problem of a lot of training and people who aren't willing to give the time?
Well, you lose some people to that. I mean, really, people that would be good at it. And just, I guess if it comes down to personal commitment, how much time do you want to spend? We try to have a Saturday a month in for training, at least until we get everything organized the way we feel comfortable. And plus a meeting or 2 in that to sort out what's going on and who's doing what where. And it's a problem, not only that, and I'm not being critical at all, but you have a lot of different types of horse riders and different breeds of horses. And I'm not saying this, because so-and-so over here doesn't ride the same kind of horse or enjoy the same style of riding I do. There is a big difference, and you have to have a relatively calm mount, able to handle rough terrain, or you're not going to be useful in a group like ours. I'm not saying it has to be a certain breed, but some breeds do lend themselves more to that than others.
Well, if I was a cynic, I conclude that 10 years, 15 years down the road, you're either going to have one superbly trained individual, or you're going to have an all-paid professional fire and emergency service, even in rural counties. Is that where we're going?
The trend determining factor. It's the EMS side that's determining whether you are going to become a full-time or a part-time paid. I know, get over on that western side or College Township, well, they're making a change. Danville is thinking about making some changes. Their EMS responses are so high, and that to keep somebody on staff all the time, it's going to have to become part paid and part volunteer. Centerburg has went that way already this past year. They're becoming a full-time and part paid volunteer. Now, I can't see, that's not the fire side of it that's causing it, it's the EMS runs that's responsible. You just can't ask a person to volunteer 10 or 15 runs a day all the time, and so that's what's going to dictate a lot of departments making changes.
How much of that is due to the growth in population here in the county? I'm thinking particularly in Centerburg, which has the most rapid growth. Is that pressure a function, more people, more runs?
Yeah, and a lot of it is more what the public is requiring you to do. And a lot of it, I think, in the future, the departments are going to have a higher educational or more dedicated educational program to the public on, if you want us to do this, then you're going to have to pay to support. And then so there's going to have to be a balance. Some of your things that the public's going to have to realize, they're going to have to determine what's a real emergency, what are we going to have to, for nosebleed, do we call the squad or do we take them and handle it ourselves like we used to? Now, that's one of the things, educational, not even on EMS, it's on the fire side, the educational is the big thing. These gentlemen said, you gotta educate the public to what their needs are, what our needs are, you gotta balance it.
There are probably some liability issues though too, for you all, if you're making that determination of whether you're gonna send this emergency squad out or not.
Yeah.
You call, you don't make a determination. You go.
Yeah, there's a lot of liability both ways, and that's, if you make a decision, you have to stick with it, that's what you go by.
Well, you talked about the public, so why don't we open it up to the public? Things that you'd like to talk about, questions to ask?
Well, how do you communicate with the public regularly? Do you have displays at the county fair, or do you have, little events, or how do you do that?
We are starting that, since we were established August 8th, 2000, so we're relatively new, and these guys even newer than we are. It's getting the volunteers to go sit at the fairground, and do that. So we're trying to branch out and do the marketing aspect of it, which is just being there and being available and things like this. This helps out tremendously.
We found out that in our area from the fire side is, you start with kids, and that's where we've always started. We have regular programs we do at the schools. We handle programs for any 4-H clubs and even the adults and that. So you get educational material or programs established and let your community know about it, and eventually they'll come